Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis, and welcome to another week of Living the Wiccan Life. This week we bring you an interview with Donald Frew, one of the interfaith representatives of the Covenant of the Goddess, and one of the best-known pagan figures in the international interfaith movement. I'm sure you'll find it a fascinating interview. Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis, and we're here, still at PantheaCon, with the very well-known Donald Frew.
Hi.
Hello. And are you enjoying PantheaCon?
Yes, immensely. As is often the case with these things, it's more the meeting of old friends who come together from all over the country than the programs.
That's very good.
In fact, often I only get a chance to get to the programs that I'm doing. Maybe one or two extra.
Well, people, the people connections are I think, what I'm seeing is people here are so nice. That
we have a really nice community in the Bay Area.
I've been very impressed by that.
Partly, I think, because there's such a diversity of different neo-pagan trads out here. Nobody really has the chance to dominate. And so everybody has to kind of play nice with everybody else, you know?
I've seen that everybody's playing nice. And I'm sure you know there are parts of the country where that isn't always true. And it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to work here. And one of the things also that kind of distinguishes this area is that, I think, is that it's very common for people to be initiates of more than one trad, or initiates like, you know, doing Candomblé one night and Gardnerian Wicca the next night, you know, things like that. And so there's a lot of cross-fertilization in that way out here that I think some people can find horrifying in other parts of the country, but we find exciting.
I think you're correct, and I think that sometimes people need to be horrified, but that's my mileage and yours may vary. We were talking a few minutes ago about how to focus this interview, and I think our decision was to focus on interfaith.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit both to your own career in dealing with interfaith matters and also to what you think our community needs in that respect.
Well, actually, I do this on behalf of Covenant of the Goddess. I'm one of the national interfaith representatives. I started out doing it as a public information officer, which meant police, media, all sorts of things. But interfaith sort of ate up my time, and it became the thing that I focused on, so it became just a specialized position. And it's sort of an interesting coincidence that we're here at PantheaCon, founded by Glenn Turner. And in 1975, right after Covenant of the Goddess was founded, Glenn went to the Berkeley Area Interfaith Council and joined and did fundraising for them. And so then many years later in 1985, when as part of my public information officer duties I went to the Berkeley Area Interfaith Council, I walked into this room and there was all the mainstream religions on one side of the room, represented at the time by retired people, you know, the blue-haired ladies kind of phrase. And on the other side was the Unification Church and the Hare Krishnas and the Scientologists. And I thought, well, this will be interesting. And I filled out my name tag, Don Frew, Covenant of the Goddess, and went to get some punch. And this lady peered at my badge. She went, Covenant of the Goddess. Oh, Glenn's group. How's Glenn doing? Oh, we miss her. And then she said, this guy's from Glenn's group. And so all the people from the mainstream side of the room clustered around me, kind of shuffled me over to that side of the room, and it was that way ever after.
That's wonderful.
So it was a very friendly introduction. And the Berkeley group was very committed to inclusivity. And for probably 7 years or so, people would say, well, Berkeley can do that. They can be that inclusive. But around the rest of the country, you know, no, sorry, it's maybe Christians and Jews talking to each other. But then in 1993, everything changed. Back in 1893 had been the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago. And so in 1993, people in Chicago said, gee, it's the centennial, we should do something. And so they started putting together another, in anticipation of 93, putting together another parliament. And since I was a member of the Berkeley Interfaith Council, and the Berkeley Interfaith Council was a member of NAIN, which is this North American network of interfaith councils, I heard about it. I took this to COG and said, you know, we should really be there. And at the time, COG's budget, I think, was about like $10,000, and they allocated about $4 to send myself and another public information officer and the first officer. And we went, and 40 COG members went on their own dime, which really impressed me, that people were willing to put that kind of commitment in. One person went just to go and like be at my left hand and make Xeroxes and make sure that I actually drink water and things like, you know, things like that. And we went expecting to be this tiny little blip.
Yeah.
You know, okay, we'll be one of many groups there. People will see us, you know, fine, but that's good. And we got a hospitality suite. And there were 4 other neo-pagan groups there, the Fellowship of Isis, Earth Spirit, and Circle. all of whom we had a history of working well together.
Yes.
So we got there, and in the opening session, Gerald Barney said, had prepared the Global 2000 report for Jimmy Carter, said, there's this much arable land, we use it up at this rate, the population's growing this way, so basically do the numbers, and in 2025 the earth begins to die. And then he said, the Abrahamic religions bear a lot of the fault for this. And then he said, we need to find new faiths and new ways to sacralize nature if we're going to survive. And we were there. So suddenly, the Native Americans, who were there for the first time, they weren't allowed in 1893, and the neo-pagans were the center of the show. And the Native Americans were very insular. They really didn't talk to people. They kind of talked very quietly. But the neo-pagans were very aggressive about this. I mean, not in a bad way, but I mean, we had somebody at all the press meetings. We had somebody every morning with briefing the press. We had the hospitality suite. And so suddenly our programs were swamped. We planned a circle in the park for 50 people and 500 showed up. You know, and so suddenly in that one event, 9 days in Chicago in 1993, we went, in my opinion, from being a bunch of weirdos to being a minority religion. You know, we made that shift. And since then, both the interfaith movement has taken off, in which now everybody wants to be inclusive, and groups are forming all over the place. And we were there from the start. And groups aggressively, gee, we don't have any pagans in our group, we need to find someone, you know, and they search us out. And so the whole picture has changed. And one of the things that happened right after the Parliament that also made a big difference was the founding of something called the United Religions Initiative, which was founded by Bishop Swing, an Episcopal bishop in San Francisco. And he had an idea of a United Nations kind of thing. And he toured the world and talked to religious leaders and quickly realized this isn't really going to work. So they switched to a grassroots approach, saying, let's engage all the people who are interested and let them self-organize. And created a complex set of bylaws that in many ways replicated the Covenant of the Goddess. Maximum autonomy in the local groups, while networked at a higher level. And let's run with it. And so this, because of the enthusiasm generated by the Parliament, this took off all around the world. And early on, we got involved. The pagans were there. So that when the charter was created and the purpose of the organization was created, part of the purpose states that it's there to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. We really lobbied hard for that, the earth being in there. When the first Global Council was elected, I was elected one of the trustees for North America, which I'm very proud of, not really personally, but for North America, because the vast majority of people who voted didn't know me. They just had a number of candidates and they thought, ooh, a witch, cool, you know. And so they were voting for a witch to represent them. They had a Buddhist, a Christian, and a witch, you know, which says something about how far we've come.
It really does.
So I was served on the Global Council the first 3-year term, and then the next term I didn't run again, but I was appointed an at-large trustee, and now we're going through elections again, and I've been nominated again. I might continue. So I do work with the United Religions locally. I've moved from the Berkeley Interfaith Council to the Interfaith Center at the Presidio. The Presidio is a huge military base in San Francisco, right in downtown San Francisco. Beautiful. And it was converted to civilian use. And they used the language swords to plowshares in describing this. And a member of the Jewish community, Rita Semmel, said, that's our language, we should be there. And that became the seed for having a interfaith center at the Presidio. And it's made up of 25 interfaith councils and seminaries around the Bay Area. And once again, right from the beginning, they wanted to have a witch on their board, so they invited me to join it. And what I'm finding is that, with the exception of some parts of the United States, which are somewhat less advanced in this respect, that most often they say it's really cool, we want to have a pagan. You know, and that the doors are opening faster than we can go through them, and more doors are opening than we have bodies to go through. So it's really a whole new world of interfaith.
It really is a huge difference from what it once was.
A lot of the younger people that I encounter here, just they don't remember the persecution.
Oh, they have no clue.
You know, what people really, you had to be in the closet. I mean, if they wanted to protect your job or protect keeping your children.
And for many people, it really is different today. Not everyone. There are places,
right.
But it's such a difference that people who are just now coming into the community cannot imagine.
And a lot of that change, I think, is coming about through the interfaith work around the country.
It's very
because their
important.
sources of information, their ministers, are now looking at religious diversity differently. So I think that we're doing a panel tomorrow about it called 30 Years of Wiccan Interfaith Work, What Have We Learned? You know, because it is now 30 years later, and we have several of us on the panel who've been doing it a long time to start to talk about, okay, what have we learned from the experience? Not just doing public relations, but what have we learned? What are things that other traditions can benefit from learning from us? What are things that we can benefit from learning from other traditions? And this whole cliche that interfaith doesn't threaten your faith, it deepens it. That's what they always say, and it's true. You know, the encounter with people of other religions, especially with the questions they ask that you may never have thought of.
Oh, that's true.
You know, I did a series of dialogues with conservative Christians at the Spiritual Counterfeits Project, comparing concepts, and one question they asked, so they said, in Christianity we're taught to love the sinner and hate the sin. What is the Wiccan attitude towards the person who's transgressed? You know, that's actually a really good question. You know, I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, we don't have the concept of sin, we have the idea of making right, but what's the attitude towards the person in that? It's going, oh, I have to think about that a minute, you know.
What did you decide?
Actually, I'd have to think about that a minute and reflect back.
I hope that you enjoyed part 1 of our interview with Donald Frew, and that you'll join us for its continuation in part 2 of our episode.